Welcome back to another week of Scarlet Spotlight. I'm your host, Cardale Jones, and this week guest needs no introduction. The man, the myth, the legend, the guy who saved our perfect 12-0 season. The last time Ohio State actually was undefeated in 2012 with a big game-sealing interception versus the team up north, Mr. Tyvis Powell. Tyvis Powell, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, man. You know, anytime I can come out here and bless your podcast, you know, I'm going to come do it because you my dog.
No, I appreciate it, man. I think, you know, that comment right there speaks about the brotherhood, speaks about the things that you endure at a place like Ohio State. No other place out there like Ohio State, and no other place out there like Ohio, period. We really embody the Ohio versus the world kind of mantra that you see is kind of resurfacing over the last couple of months after Ryan Day made a big comment after the big win versus Notre Dame. Yeah. And I'm going to just get right into it with you being an Ohio native, and really what does Ohio football means to you, and how did that path lead you to Ohio State?
Well, for me, you know, Ohio football started for me when I was about 9 years old. I just wanted to be like my older brother. He played football, and I was like, you know, let me go try it. And then come to find out, I was
pretty good at it.
Yeah, but I was playing DN, you know, immediately you playing DN, just running around people. But I fell in love with the game, and obviously you watch it on Sundays. And, you know, at that time, that was when Michael Vick was playing, LaDainian Tomlinson, Chad Johnson.
Some of the greats.
Yeah, those were some of the guys that I was looking up to. And I was like, you know what, man, I really want to do this with my life because I just really enjoy playing it. Now, you know, I took it seriously. You know, as you know, we playing in Ohio high school ball. Like, that thing is serious. You think about just some of the guys that came before us, like Ted Ginn, Troy Smith, Dante Whitner. You know, they was all coming to Ohio State, and they was like, not just going there, like they were superstars,
household names.
Yeah. So it was like when I seen that as a kid, I was like, you know what, it can be done. You know, you can be from Ohio and you can go to Ohio State and just really shine there. So that's when the love for it came to me. And that's why I just wanted to do that, man. I just wanted to come to Ohio State and keep my talent in Ohio. I'm a loyal guy. Obviously, you know, why would I need to go out anywhere else where you can go right to Columbus and be developed and go to the NFL and have a great career there? So I just thought everything that I needed was right here in Ohio.
Yeah, and then you speak about some of those names, Ted Ginn Jr., be specific, playing for his dad, Coach Ginn at Glenville. It put things in perspective where, you know, in the inner cities in Ohio and really all around the country, it's not a lot of positive things going on, right? For the most part, and that's the sad reality of it. But once you see a guy that goes through the same circumstances to a point you are going through and make it through that, it gives you a lot of hope. Yeah. And especially having so many great examples before us and before me in particular at a school like Glenville, in a city like inner city Cleveland, the Glenville community, the St. Clair community, the Lakeview community. All of that gives you a sense of pride of, you know, like I said before, it's not a lot of positive things coming out of those environments. Yeah. So when something happened to that magnitude, and not just have an opportunity to leave that environment, but to flourish in other environments because of your previous environment, it puts a bigger chip on your shoulder. And we talked about this a lot, and I know, you know, you say you're the ultimate 216 guy. I mean, you're always repping your Indians, your Cavs, your Browns, and things like that, and your birthday even 216. It's just a different pride about it, and I think it embodies that Ohio versus the world mentality.
And I was always kind of jealous of Glenville guys, and I know that's crazy to say because obviously, you know, Bedford is considered the suburbs and Glenville is considered inner city. But I was jealous because for y'all, like for you in particular, you had guys that went to your school and made it to Ohio State. You know, at Bedford, the only people we had was Chris Chambers and Lee Evans, and they all went to Wisconsin. So it was like Ohio State was never good enough, or they didn't think that the people at Bedford were good enough for Ohio State. So for me, it was even harder because it was like, man, like
because we already had the pipeline established.
Exactly. So for me, it's like, is Wisconsin gonna be where I end up? And luckily, you know, I ended up meeting Jim Tressel, and he ended up giving me the offer and stuff like that. So it worked out.
Yeah. And speaking of Coach Tressel, and you know, I kind of say this, I was literally Coach Tressel's last committee of his guy to commit to him under his.
No, you wasn't. I was. No, I was.
You was?
Yeah, I was.
When you commit?
I committed June of. Actually, I committed to him right before he resigned, like a week before he resigned.
Oh wow!
He gave me the last offer.
Well, I was the last quarterback then. I thought you committed like your junior year.
No, I committed after my junior year.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yes.
Well, it's fun fact.
Yeah.
Fun fact.
Well,
That's
you a year older than me.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good
so
point.
You would have been a senior, and I would have been a junior. Yeah.
That's a good point. Oh man, no, that's great. But speaking of Coach Tressel and getting to that road to Ohio State, for me personally, I knew that was a place that I wanted to call home one day, and the road clearly wasn't easy. And the reason why I kind of got thrown off of why and who was the last one, because I had a detour. I went to military school. I went to prep school before I came in and reclassed actually with you. That's what kind of just threw me off. But going down a road like that just to make sure I had a home here was very important to me.
Yeah.
Speak about your road to Ohio State and once you finally got on campus.
Man, my road was obviously, I committed as a junior or going into my senior year. But to get that offer, man, it was so much that I had to do. Like, I was coming down to campus all the time, just showing my face and getting friendly with the staff. As far as a workout goes, man, I was getting up at 6 a.m. every day in high school, like trying to make sure that I can be ready, because I ended up having a relationship with Tyvis Johnson. He recruited our area, and he was the corners coach. So for me, he was like, okay, this is to be the guy that I'll be. Obviously, he'll be my coach when I make it there. So, me and him, he would see me. He'd be like, the thing about me was that nobody believed that I was truly 6'3" and that I could play corner. That was the thing. Everybody saw me and was like, he probably ain't 6'3". Obviously, high school, they'll tell me he's 6'5", and you go in there, he's 6'1", so something like that. So when they saw me, they was like, man, you the dude that's on the tape, you 6'3" for real. And I'm like, yeah. And they was like, oh, you really can move. Yeah, so I think for me, it was, I just had to continue to work out and continue to work on my craft, because for all of my life, I really wanted to play wide receiver, and it wasn't
But you can't catch.
Stop it. Don't do that. Don't do that. Now, listen, I'll have you know that I could have played wide receiver here, but we're not even going to get into that. But when I played DB, I hadn't played the position like my entire life, because I always play wide receiver. So I always felt like I was behind. So I was always doing the extra stuff, doing the extra drills, like backpedaling. Like, if you would have seen me as a sophomore, you'd be like, you can't even backpedal correctly. So it was just a lot of mechanics and technique stuff that I used to work on. And luckily, by the time I got out of there, I was pretty decent at all of it. So that's really what my road to getting to Ohio State was, just continuing to work on my craft. Obviously, once I got the offer, it was a no-brainer to go there. But my mind was, I didn't want to get there and just sit. Like, I didn't want to just, people get there, because one of the things is they recruit good kids from Ohio, but a lot of them go down there and don't play. And I didn't want to be that guy. I wanted to go down there and be able to contribute right away. And unfortunately, I ended up redshirting, but that's another story.
Yeah, no, I mean, looking back over not just your career, but our time at Ohio State, you had so many guys who kind of just went through the program and not having an opportunity to be developed, or not really applying themselves accordingly, or what you thought would be accordingly to have success at a high level at that point.
Well, I mean, for me, to be honest with you, if I'm going to be real with you, when I got to Ohio State, I did all of this stuff to make it to Ohio State. And when I got there, like, it was like I did it, Like, I was so like, yes, I'm here. But I never thought that I need to reset my goals. I was just complacent with just being here as a freshman. And I actually had a tough conversation with Coach Meyer after our freshman year, where he was like, you know what, you might need to look into transferring out of here, because I don't think you're going to be good enough to play here. And I just remember just literally crying about it. Like, man, like, how did I work so hard to get here, finally get here, and just gonna let this moment pass? And then I remember talking to Bradley Roby, and he's like, listen, bro, you only got one life. You only got one opportunity at this. So don't let this moment pass you by. And when he said that to me, it kind of woke me up. And after that conversation with Coach Meyer, I remember we came in, because remember 2012, we was Bowles band. So we was gone from like the beginning of December.
Yep.
We had the conversation, we came back in January, and then we started winter workouts. And I remember in winter workouts, I was like, you know what? I'm going back to who I was in high school. That was the dude who was doing all the extra stuff, trying to make sure I can get an edge on the competition. And luckily, when we got to spring ball, it paid off. I became the start nickel.
Yeah, and then, I make this comparison a lot, and I said this publicly a few times about guys who's getting ready to transition from the NFL, from college to the NFL. I said, believe it or not, it's easy getting there.
Yeah.
It's fairly easy getting there. I think you go to a top program and you do fairly well, you have an opportunity to get there, but that's a foot in the door.
Yeah.
It's extremely hard to stay there.
Yes.
I think that's where the battle really, and you just hit on that. And sometimes because you as a kid, you grow up thinking like, I want this so bad, this is my goal, this is my dream.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you reach it, you're like, okay, this is cool.
Yeah.
And not understanding, hey, is more time, effort, energy to put into this to sustain this and to have a career at this point. I think that just goes for life, period. Not getting complacent.
Yeah, that and the fact that you find out when you get it, you find out what's the real reason that you really wanted it. Did you want it for fame and money, or did you want it because you wanted to actually be great at it?
Yeah.
And that was the thing. Like when I got here, like, did I just want to be here to say, oh, I'm a Buckeye? Was that the case? No, I wanted to make sure that when I left here, people remembered who I was. I made some plays here and ultimately helped me get to the next level.
Yeah, and speaking about those plays you made in the introduction, I kind of highlighted one of the biggest plays of your, I think, college career. I think that play really gave you that household name and a lot of momentum leading on to the rest of your days at Ohio State.
Yeah.
What, if you had to pick, this may be tough because you played a lot of great football at Ohio State. You sealed a lot of games for us. And, you was a defensive MVP of the national championship game, the first college football playoff championship game. But if you had to pick one play, what do you think is your most memorable play at Ohio State?
For me, my most memorable play my favorite play is probably my pick in Virginia Tech. And it's a real good reason why. The reason being is because, as you know, that was our opening game. And as you know, we lost to them the year before. So we in camp, and I remember none of the safeties could catch the ball down the middle of the field. We dropped like every pick in practice, even when we was doing like drills, that we would just drop the ball going down the middle of the field. So coming to the game, I did my preparation and whatnot, and I told Coach Ash, who was our safeties coach, I said, Coach Ash, if they throw that ball down the middle of the field, I promise you, I'm going to pick the ball and I'm going to point to you in the press box. And he was like, y'all ain't caught that ball all year. What makes you think that you going to catch that ball in this game? I said, okay, just watch. So on that particular play, I remember in practice, after watching film, me and Coach Ash talked about it, and he was like, if they come out in this formation, pretty much it's like a snug formation, both receivers close to the line of scrimmage. It's a two-man route. One's going to run an over, the other's going to run a post. He was like, the problem is that if they run the post, somebody got to be in the middle to get it, because the problem is if they run up, the dig is to catch the safety's eye. We was playing quarters at the time. So it's to take that safety's eye and leave one-on-one with the corner. So I was like, when I seen the formation, I was like, oh, this is the play. Oh, this is what I've been waiting on all game. So if you go back and watch me on that play, I immediately take off. I didn't even look at the dig.
That dig.
I went straight to the post, and the quarterback, I don't know how he didn't see me. He throws it anyway. And as I'm looking at the ball, I'm just smiling. I'm smiling to myself like, yeah, this is what I've been waiting on. And I catch it, and I'm just like, I wish I would have stayed on my feet, because I probably I could have made a good play and turned it to great, but not even going to go into that. I catch the ball, and the first thing I do is look up at the press box and smile.
No, I mean, that's crazy, because you're talking about that post dig concept in quarters, and as a quarterback, those are type of things that we're talking like, hey, we know that boundary safety or that that quarter safety, he got to be a little low and help on his dig, so he's going to have outside leverage on his corner on his quarters concept, and boom, as long as you leave that thing inside him, don't throw the post on the backside as a corner is, you have a chance for a home run. So that goes into the cat and mouse game of the quarterback and usually the safety, because usually people don't know when you break the huddle as a quarterback. Well, I was always taught you get your eyes on the boundary safety, because he's going to tell you a lot about the coverage and the rotation, right? Not necessarily the whole thing, but he can give you a good starting point. It's going to be a one high structure or a two high structure. Yeah. Then you just go through your read keys from that to figure out everything else when the play starts. And that is a big quarters beater that you would think is a dig post. But, you talk about the preparation you put into that, and that came from football. how have you really incorporated some of those preparations through what we learned with our staff in football to the things you're doing now in life?
Well, I mean, obviously, now that we're working in this sports media, a lot of the times it's me breaking film down and looking at tape and, trying to figure out where things went wrong and how can I explain this to people. So that's where a lot of my preparation comes from. Thank God that I was taught how to watch film properly when I was at Ohio State. Just being around some veteran guys and being around some coaches, some things to look out for. So now I can relay that same message, to listeners or to fans that's watching to teach them the game of football, because I think that's the one thing that I'm pretty good at is breaking down this game of football that the average fan or not even the average fan can understand.
Yeah, no, I totally agree because, I caught a couple of your shows. I'm looking forward to getting out on the 18th when Ohio State hosts Minnesota home with Big Ten
tailgate show,
where you go into depth a lot of the breakdowns in a way that the average fan can understand and to respect the game. And like you said before, that just was a product of the lifestyle we lived for so long that is helping us with life after football.
Right. And
then with that whole transition of life after football, I think our staff did a great job of really installing those values into us. Like, hey, in the real world, people are going to want people that's going to have that dedication, that sacrifice, that teamwork, that leadership type of qualities to help their brand or to help their business and to be a great quote unquote CEO. Right. So I got to give our staff a lot of credit for that, because without that, I don't think a lot of guys you see who transition to life after football struggle a lot.
Yeah.
Because at a certain point of their lives, football or whatever sport is all they knew.
Yeah.
And, we fell into that, or I know I fell into that early on in my career, thinking that I'm going to play this thing until I'm 65 years old.
That's
and
what
this is the only thing I'm going to do.
I said 41.
But, yeah, exactly.
But what a lot of people don't know is, you remember when Coach Meyer made us do our 5-year, 10-year plans?
Yeah.
So he actually did and they still do it at Ohio State. They do a really good job of making you think beyond football.
Yeah.
And as crazy as that may sound, because we're so dedicated to football, we're so locked in, but they are providing avenues for you. I mean, they bring in people to talk to you from different companies.
Yeah, Real Life Wednesdays.
Yeah, we had the job fair.
We
actually had to put suits on, create resumes, keep in contact with people. So they did a good job of that. And it was actually at that point where when I was doing my 5-year, 10-year plan post college, that I realized that this is an avenue that I really wanted to go down. And the funny thing is, if I go back and look at it, a lot of the stuff that I wrote down actually happened. Yeah,
and that's great. I think those are some of the products that you get from playing for, a staff like the one Coach Meyer created. And I guarantee you, the relationships you still have with Coach Ash and those guys are life-lasting relationships. I'm saying for me with Tom Herman, and he's down at FAU now and trying to turn that program around. But we talk about some of the big things that really make Ohio State different. And you named clearly, the tradition, you named potentially playing for a guy like Coach Tressel at the time, and then just being loyal to Ohio and want to stay home. I think some of those things are kind of still installed in that program. When we talk about really preparing you for life after football and really being proud to wear this helmet.
Yeah.
But what similarities do you see, if any, through this year's team in this last couple of years? I guess not just this year's team, but the teams after us the teams after us and then the teams before us. So not our teams, but the teams that we grew up watching and seeing through the recruiting process, what made us want to be Buckeyes. Yeah. And then when we finally got there, kind of added to that culture, and now these guys after us. What are some of those similarities that you see?
Well, I mean, I still think that you just have dominant players there. I mean, you got guys that's like head and shoulders above anybody else out there on that field. And, that's the one thing about Ohio State. You take a look at some of the programs around the country over the years, they've had moments where they were the best. Yeah. And then as years go on, they kind of fell off. The one thing I can say about Ohio State is that they never fell off. Like they might not have been in the title game, but they've been either one game away or maybe 2 games away from being in the title game every year. So just that championship mentality is still there. That competitive excellence that Coach Meyer always talked about is still there. And for me, as a defense, obviously it's been ups and downs, but as of lately this year, that defense looks just like that silver bullet defense that I grew up watching. I mean, just some of the stuff that they're doing, some of the yards, the way they forcing fumbles, the aggressive mentality. It looks fun to be out there. Like,
for sure.
I really like this Buckeye team, and I really love the fact that, you know, even after a rough couple of years on defense, they bounced back and they really took it. They put it a chip on their shoulder and they took it personally. And they going out there every Saturday and proving people wrong.
Yeah, and I made this comparison, I mean, numerous times about this year's team, not just this team, but in particular, really the defense. It reminds me of 2015, where, and I know a lot of people are giving comparison to the 2002 national championship team, where the team would just keep winning by the skin of their teeth.
Yeah.
But I say more the 2015 team because we got a head and shoulders better talent on offense on paper.
Yeah.
Where you should be putting up 60, 70 points, but it's kind of underachieving. But when they show sparks of greatness, it's like, this is unbelievable. Then you had a defense that was so dominant, like this defense here, this year giving up less than 4 yards a play, which is unheard of. That's like pretty much a 3 and out every time our offense touched the ball. And they still haven't given up too many explosive plays. And you look at the collective group of guys, I wouldn't say not one guy really stands out on this defense that I would say, oh, this is a top 5, top 10 pick.
Right.
But they play so good together that they elevate everyone else play where you might see 3 or 4 guys go in the first round.
Yeah.
Because they played with this defense or a part of this unit that was so dominant. So I love to see it. I mean, clearly, hopefully they get the different results than we had, you know, in that year. But I definitely think they can, but because they're going to need it leading up to when you get late in November playing a team up north. Yeah. And leading into that, do you think the Big Ten goes through Michigan?
Yeah. I mean, when you look at it, you can't. I mean, as a Big Ten analyst, I have to call it the way I see it now. I think that there's no other reason to say that it doesn't. I mean, they haven't won a game by anything less than 24 points this entire season. Their closest game was against Rutgers this season, and they look absolutely dominant. Now, people will say, well, they ain't playing nobody, but that's not their fault. You know, your job is to go out there and dominate against whoever they put on in front of you, and so far they've done that.
Exactly.
And the offense, maybe it's not, you know, all this explosive, but they put up points. I mean, J.J. McCarthy is starting to become a Heisman candidate again, and that running back room is still good, and Cornelius Johnson is good, and Roman Wilson is really good. So they got some playmakers over there, and they're doing a great job of showing up every Saturday and looking like a really good team. Yeah,
and then we all try to say they haven't played anybody, but they're doing what they're supposed to do versus these opponents. So you can't take that away from them. And I do agree it still runs through them, especially over the last 2 years that being able to beat Ohio State in the way they beat them. But I think this defense gives us a better chance. And I don't know last time I said that about Ohio State team going to a game. I always will say, the offense. I mean, you look at the quarterbacks, look at the playmaker. I'm like, you always will have a chance with a guy like Justin Fields or Dwayne Haskins or JT Barrett at quarterback or CJ and all the unbelievable receivers and running backs. But now I'm like, this defense gives them a chance to really make a run, especially in a year of college football where I think it's so wide open. I think this is the most wide open college football has been in some years from what I can remember. But kind of wrapping up, man, we talked a great deal about just what our staff prepared us for. What piece of advice would you be able to give someone who's either transitioning to life after football, if it's coming 4 years, 5 years in college, or 3 to 10 years in the professional level?
I would tell them that to find something that you're passionate about outside of football, even if it is football. If it's football, you learned the game. So if you can break that game down or be able to talk through a game, that's a profession that's always wanted. Everybody always wants to learn more about football. And I think that everybody has their own unique perspective of how the game is being played. So I think it's always a demand there. But if it's not football, find something that you're very passionate about. It's something out there that you care about, and look to explore that avenue, because I want you to do something that doesn't seem like work. Like for me, this doesn't seem like work. Not this podcast, but being in sports media. It doesn't feel like work. It's something that I enjoy doing. I want to do it every day, and I just love it. And that's what I would encourage other people to do. Find something that you're passionate about, that you love, and go explore that and see how far that can take you.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that hits the nail right on the head. And I think, You know, I don't know if you ever heard me say that, but that was the best piece of advice I got from a guy named Anthony Lynn, who was my running back coach and coordinator at the Buffalo Bills. When he spoke to all the rookies, I think maybe our middle of the season.
Lynn, the head coach from that was at the Chargers.
So yeah, he got the head coach job that he traded for.
So you know his son was my DB's coach in Houston.
Yeah. Because his wife is actually, not to go too much of the story, but he got Cleveland ties. But anyways, and he saw that our rookies was hitting the wall. I was one of those guys week 10, 11, 12, where in college football you ready for a break because you know you're getting ready for bowl season. You got 3 or 4 weeks off. No, we got 4 more games, and that's not even we make the playoffs or not. So you just hit a mental wall, and he said that. And, you know, I think it gave me so much clarity I took so much pressure off myself of, hey, if I don't make it in this, I don't know what I'm going to do when I was figuring it out while I was still in something I love to do. Yeah. So, and I think, you know, you hear the saying, if you find a career, you never work a day in your life because you're getting up and you're going to do what you love to do. And that's a great piece of advice, man. And the final thing here, man, prediction for this week, Rutgers, Ohio State game. And I know we playing against Shiano, right?
It's Shiano, like piano.
Oh, appreciate it. Even better, Shiano. Greg, and a guy that had a lot of Ohio State history, not so good. But, you know, so that's a game that he was going to want to win. And I guarantee we see some type of trick plays and offsides kicks and things like that.
Yeah.
But what is your prediction for the game?
So my prediction for the game is that what Rutgers like to do from the couple of times that I've been able to watch them this season, and I was able to go out there and cover a game for them. You know, the Kyle Manung guy is really good, the running back. You know, he was one of those kids that wasn't highly recruited, kind of got overlooked. He got taught his coach talked him into getting into Rutgers. His high school coach talked Rutgers into signing him, took him, and he's just worked his butt off, and he's become one of the top running backs in the Big Ten. So the key is going to be trying to stop him and slow him down, because if you can stop him, if you keep him under 90 yards, they are not really good at all. The 2 games that I think they lost this year, he had like 40 yards rushing, and you got to force Gavin Wimsatt, who's the quarterback, make him throw the ball, because I don't think he's thrown over 200 yards for a game this season. Yeah. And that's what teams were doing. They were selling out on the run and making Gavin Wimsatt beat him with his arm. I don't think they have the playmakers to do it for 4 quarters, so I think Ohio State will pressure them and make them put the ball in Gavin Wimsatt's hand. Now, the one thing about him that makes him unique is that he is mobile. He's very involved in the run game. He's broke a bunch of long runs this season, so playing on defense, always having a mobile quarterback makes things challenging. But you have to make him stand in that pocket and deliver that ball, which I don't think he's going to be able to do for 4 quarters. So I think Ohio State takes advantage of that. I got this game being something like 31-7 Buckeyes.
Wow, that's crazy. So I'm going to go with something very similar. I think anytime when you in a point of, technically it'd be November when he's playing, you got to be able to run the ball. Yep. You got to be able to stop the run. And I think this front seven for Ohio State, even though this is not the Rutgers teams that we grew up or we went through Ohio State playing when we was putting up, 89-0 and all this other crazy stuff. Shiano, I said it right this time. Yeah. He is turning this program around to get in the right direction. Do I think they're ready to compete with Ohio State in the top tier Big Ten opponents yet? I don't think so. But who's to say the next 3 to 4 years we'll see. But I got it 35-7.
Okay.
Buckeyes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, appreciate it, man.
It's going to be one of them games that no matter what the score is, they're going to fight for 4 quarters, because that's just the way a Shiano coach team is.
Yeah, and he got those guys playing with pride, and you can tell they love playing for a guy like that.
Absolutely.
And with a guy that, previously had ties in that area, he know how to recruit that area. Because I think that's the key to Rutgers. Yeah. You got to be able to keep those guys in the area, because they got some ballers in
Jersey,
that area. Yeah, got some ballers there. So, man, appreciate it. Thanks for coming on, man. And until next time, go Bucks.
Go Bucks.